Is that at a good height for y'all?
Mm-hmm.
You guys talked to Stanfield yet, or Luis?
We haven't.
No.
It's the first time.
Good kids, man.
We're good.
Good kids. Luis will be shy, but you get him to open up, and he'll be
So you
good.
got any dirt we need to ask on?
No, Luis got a new hairstyle. You could probably ask him about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been trying to chip away at Stanfield on the secrets that are going on over in the plains to see if you can give me a little competitive advantage. But
Fair enough.
yeah.
Just use Sam Dutton as your inside, spot.
Yeah. he defected, so that'll be a tough one. It's interesting though when you think about it, because you get a sense of how those guys are performing. And a guy gave me a great piece of advice a long time ago. He said, "You watch how other guys pitch. Well, the reason they're pitching for their team is they used to get their guys out in the fall. So I give you a little hint. Now you still got to execute it, but."
Right.
Nate, how is it this year with all these new faces, I guess? And year two for you, feeling like the message is at least hit home with some of these guys, right? You don't need to really start from ground zero.
Yeah, I think anytime you look at guys like Kate Anderson, who's been in the mix, and there's certainly others, Gavin Guidry, guys who are familiar with that messaging can get the message across to the other guys at times, and you might be working with somebody else. So it speeds up that learning curve for some of those guys. Really like the group as a whole. Just there's a good vibe and a good energy with those guys. We made it through the draft pretty good. So the talent of the freshmen is there. They need miles on their tires, and there's no way about doing it other than to just go out and do it. And I think that's going to give them ultimate feedback. You can simulate all you want in scrimmages, but until you put 10,000 fans in there and a little excitement, a little noise, it just hits different. And I experienced that even myself last year, having been here in a regional. That's one thing, but when Holman was going good on Friday night against Florida, this place was rocking different, and even our kids who had been through some home games at that point that were freshmen looked around and said, "Coach, this is a little different." So
You got guys at so many different levels, too. You think of William coming in right from high school, and just guys that have been here, like you said, and kind of know what to expect. I guess, how do you approach it? You have to have an individual plan for everybody, but there has to be some consistent messaging, too, right?
yeah, we individualize everything, and I think you really touched on something specific with William. Now, to put it into context, here's a guy who was pitching just down the street in his high school last year and then competing for a state title. And when you step on the campus at any given time, go back to, say, when Dylan Cruz was a junior. If you're a freshman trying to get somebody like Dylan Cruz out who's a year away from the big leagues, that is a massive jump to go from high school to competing against a guy who's basically MLB ready. So when you're going through the physical development, you can see it. Freshman bodies look different than the junior and senior bodies typically. But the emotional aspect that goes through it, the mental maturity, and a lot of those other things, is why guys go to college. And I think that William will benefit from that long term, as well as Kason Evans, Cooper Williams, Maverick Rizzi. I mean, they all bring great things to the table. So it's going to be fun to watch those guys, continue to evolve the way that Kate Anderson has and guys who were freshmen with me last year.
With William, how'd you learn that he was going to come here? How'd you learn that news?
Derek Curiel was walking the halls over here in the office during the summertime, and he peeked his head in one day, and I just happened to look up, and Derek, you lost? Like, Chief's office is down the hall. And, the guys will pop their head in every now and then just to kind of have some laughs, and I thought, well, this is interesting. You get to know the players a little bit more. And he says, "Coach, have you talked to William?" I said, "I have not recently. I talked to him a couple days ago." And he goes, "Okay." And he started to kind of let in that maybe he might be interested in coming here. And I know last year he was at the regional in Chapel Hill, so he was very interested in being here, and we were keen to that. Typically, his level of talent, somebody's going to get lucky and hit the lottery. I think once every 2 or 3 years where that type of talent makes its way to campus, and we were fortunate enough to be one of those guys. So later on got a phone call from Jay, and he said this might be a little bit closer than we think, and then got I think a phone call from William or a text message first. There was some conversation back and forth. I know we had both, and then it's like, all right, coach, ready for you to coach me up. So I remember being at home when I got it, and I was pretty excited.
Yeah.
This was like a few days before the draft, or like a week or so before the draft when this first started, like when Derek met with you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a few days before. I mean, it's when you go through it, you're getting hit from so many different directions. I mean, it's almost like getting recruited again. You got 30 teams that are in the mix and trying to feel out where you're at, what's your number, where do you value yourself as, and nowadays, you know, it's different. I went through the process a little bit out of high school, being drafted by the Dodgers, and even then, like, some of the things are the same, but it's different. I was notified of the draft by a Western Union telegram. So my mom told me on the phone that she got a phone call at one point, and so when I got home, and then the Western Union showed up later that afternoon. So nowadays, I guess guys find out on social media before everybody else even gets an idea of what's going on. But it's nice for William to reach out to us.
Coach, raise this up just a little bit, y'all.
Yeah.
Raise it.
Thank you.
Make it a little bit higher.
Very
Where were
sorry.
you soft-spoken?
Me? Just relaxed.
Is that good for y'all or no? Good?
It's good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You know, to fix it again when JJ gets in here.
I got my ad right. I
How
got my
you-
camera time.
How you plan on managing such a deep staff?
It kind of manages itself. And I know that sounds strange, but it's almost like people ask me what roles guys will pitch in, and even during the recruiting process, we have those conversations. The role you carve out is what you have earned. And if a guy goes out there, we always say the guy who starts the game is labeled the starter. Well, he just goes out there first, and he's going to go as long as he can, and he might keep 2 or 3 guys in the bullpen out of the mix because he pitches 7, 8 innings, and then now the score dictates it. Maybe you're up 10-1, and you got a guy that needs some innings, and all right, we're going to put him in the mix. So the score might dictate who you use at that point. Really, you know, there's some balance in there. We would like to be able to use guys in certain capacities, but the game's going to dictate that. Sometimes their health does. Luckily, and knock on wood, we're healthy right now, and I think we're just at about that time where guys are tired of playing each other. I think after this weekend, they'll be ready to see somebody in the other dugout wearing a different uniform.
You have a bunch
Chase
of righties.
Shores.
Oh, go ahead.
Chase Shores coming off of his injury. What have you seen from him?
I would say just a natural learning curve, and what I mean by that is he's now getting to experience things that the innings didn't provide for him when he was younger. You know, how do you work yourself out of a jam? He had a pretty good freshman go at it, and I know Jay and the staff did a good job of picking spots that they thought would benefit him and challenge him, but not overwhelm him either, because talent is one thing. And as we discussed a little bit earlier, once you get into the mix and navigating maybe a mature lineup, a physical lineup, whatever it might be, learning to pitch on the road for the first time in front of a crowd, those things are just different. So he's experiencing some of those things right now, and we've been working on some pitch development, and he's really advancing his understanding of who he is, and that's all we can ask him to do is just be who he is, the best version of what that is, and the most competitive version. And I like kind of the alter ego that's starting to come out in him, so it's good because he's such a gentle giant. But tell him, like, between those white lines, young man, it's okay to be a little angry and a little mean.
Where's he at as far as recovery?
He's back. I mean, yeah, we've been chipping away at increasing his workload, and he seems to be handling it just fine. And you know, again, he's a guy that we think can give us hopefully a lot of quality innings, and to what degree that'll be based on his performance, just like anybody else.
Where do you have him at now? Your guys that you're going to extend on 60? Are we there?
Yeah, we're there. I mean, generally we kind of set it a little bit higher as we go into the season, knowing that the excitement, the butterflies, the anxiety, whatever all those emotions are, is going to chip that number down. So we would rather prepare them to do a little bit extra, knowing that that number is going to be peeled back. That way they don't feel like they're trying to play catch up, or
You try to give him 80 once the season starts? Or is that
it'd be a little higher.
even higher?
Yeah. Yep.
For
We got
Chase-
fewer weeks than the MLB, so.
For Chase, is just getting his feel back for that slider kind of the toughest thing for a guy coming up. Tommy John just sort of getting that feel of the baseball, getting that spin back.
I think the first hurdle is just knowing that you can cut it loose. and that you're going to feel okay and that nothing's going to happen. That's always in the back of those guys' mind. I never went through that injury myself. I've coached a handful of guys and played with guys who did, and they've all said that's kind of the first obstacle to get over. They start playing catch, ball feels weird, and then once they get to that point in the rehab process that they can cut it loose, they want to make sure it's okay, and the next day they wake up and everything feels fine. The breaking ball's actually been very good for him thus far. In fact, he threw a breaking ball in a scrimmage in the fall, and it was 3-2 on the hitter. Guy grounded out weakly to first base, came back in. I said, hey, it was a good pitch. And he kind of looked at me underneath his hat and shrugged his shoulders. I said, well, why that response? And he goes, Coach, that's the first time I've ever thrown a breaking ball in a 3-2 count in my life. So I said, well, when you're the biggest kid with the best fastball in Little League and high school and so on, I guess that makes sense. But that's what we're trying to identify for him, is how he can advance his game best to help him out when there might be a day where something's a little bit scattered or that pitch just works to be the best option against that hitter.
You have a bunch of righties on this staff. How important is it to sort of develop those third pitches to get those opposite-sided hitters out? Because, again, there's just a lot of righties on the staff.
Yeah, I think Jared Jones put it best the other day in a scrimmage. Our hitters had a little success against him on that particular day, and he looked at me and he goes, hey, what happened to the two-pitch reliever? The guy that just threw a fastball and a breaking ball. And he said, all these guys, they got like 3-4 pitches. This is not fun. And I said, I'm going to take that as a compliment, and Jared's had a lot of success, knows what it looks like, knows what it's like to compete against, and he was just making a statement along the lines of, I guess, a backhanded compliment of sorts, like, hey, you keep getting me out with these guys, but these guys are doing a good job. So it's nice that I think the old adage is the iron sharpening iron, and so those guys have done a good job of getting better in those aspects, and it's always going to be a work in progress. If you ask anybody, Kevin Gossman was throwing a bullpen a week or two ago here at the facility, and I said, what are you working on? He says, fastball command. I mean, there's a guy who's had a lot of success, and I think the contracts back that up. And you look at that and you see, if that's the focus of a guy who's had success at the highest level, then I think that's something that we should adhere to as well.
What has been the biggest change in Cade from year 1 to year 2, in your opinion, how he's kind of evolved as a pitcher?
Boy, where to start? There's so many different areas where he's grown. I think he's taken more ownership of our unit, if you will, with the expectations of what he wants to do himself, but he puts that second to let's get everybody going, because he knows I might only throw 6 or 7 innings over the course of the weekend. There's a lot of innings left to be had. How can I help impact this freshman? How can I help impact this transfer? Here's the left-handers. Here's how we run our pick package. So that part of it has been tremendous. I think he has a better sense of who he is and what it is that he wants to do. And some of that is just based on his own experiences from last year. He felt like he could have done better, and that's the competitor in him, and that's awesome. And he's used some of those, I would say, I don't want to call them shortcomings. They're just, we either say you win or you learn. And some of those things that didn't go his way, where he didn't win, he's learned from, and he's applied that moving forward, and he sees the big picture. He sees what he needs to do and how he needs to do it, and then when he's done with his work, how he can hopefully help advance somebody else to make everybody's work a little bit easier, because he wants to win as bad as anybody that I've coached.
Yeah, you talk about the process of kind of individualizing each pitcher. I'm curious how you go about organizing that as the pitching coach. I mean, it's 21, 22 different pitchers, and you've got an individual development for each one. How do you keep that organized, if you can just speak, I guess, in broad terms of,
Sure.
of how you do that?
Yeah. A long time ago, they said I can give a man a fish or I can teach him to fish. And so kind of look at it in that sense of teaching them how to go about their business. Where are they doing things that are going well? We've got people on staff that help us, kind of formulate some ideas and some plans, and then we get feedback from the player. The player has to have a say, because it is his career, and an understanding of what he's comfortable with, because you might be asking a guy to do something that he really can't articulate why it's not working. He can just tell you, like, I don't have a feel for this. Okay. And then you can show them the path to how to get to that place. And for Cade, he's got a very good understanding of things. He's even corrected himself a few times through our conversations with, well, I was saying this, but what I really mean is that. So, it's been fun to watch his development as a whole, just because he knows what his plan is, and that may be different than Anthony Ianson or Chase Shores or Zach Cowan. I mean, there's each one of those guys. So we spend a lot of time just filtering through those things that we think are going to be impactful for each guy, and that's the fun part of coaching, is you feel like you can help change not only what they're doing in their time here, but beyond, both on and off the field.
We're going to talk to Josh here in a second, but all new catchers for you guys to work with this year, how's that working out, especially with some of you being young?
It can be a challenge, just because it's almost like, say, an offensive line or a quarterback that's learning all the play calls and how to line up and where to go and the tempo, and the verbiage is different. But Josh does a tremendous job with those guys, and their energy and their excitement, they seem to pull for one another just like our pitching staff has. So that energy has been very good. Kate Aaron Beatty, talent, talent galore. Guy's got tools across the board. When you look at Blaze Priester, again, talent, big bat, a lot of things to like about him. And Luis Hernandez and Eddie Yaman are guys who are coming from other programs that, they had success where they were. So there's a reason why they're here, and I like the way that they go about their work. I mean, they punch the clock every day that they come in here. So I think their desire to want to get to the front and be, Josh will probably tell you, like a servant to the pitcher and the pitching staff. I tell them the other direction, like, hey, I know you like hitting more than catching, so our job is to get you out from there as fast as we can. So it's fun, and just getting to see how those guys are kind of taking ownership and mixing in with the rest of the group.
Who's made the biggest jump from last year to this year?
Talking pitching here, I would look at, Kate Anderson seems to have really done a good job. Gavin Guidry's done a good job. I think that speaks to some of the questions you guys have asked relative to what's it like with year two. It's just a better understanding of the whole thing. I was talking earlier with Kirby just about, Joe Burrow, what did it look like year two here? Jaden Daniels, what did it look like year two? There was more familiarity with their surroundings and the things that they were doing, so they were able to advance their game. I know we're not going to have anybody out here that's winning a Heisman, but their game is going to get better, and it has thus far. So, and even some of the new guys that have come in, Anthony Ianson's done some things that having talked to coaches and scouts, hey, if you can kind of get him to do these things, he has. Zach Cowan's advanced his game a little bit in some areas as well, too. So I think they've all made improvements. Who's the biggest? You usually find out after your opponent gives you that feedback more than just our opinion. But we like what we see so far, and I think it's going to be fun.
When you were building out this new pitching staff, what kind of traits on the field or even off the field that you were sort of looking for when it came to, finding the 85% of innings or whatever it was that you guys had to sort of replace? Like, what were you looking for in the portal, and how were you sort of helping Jay pick out what guys you guys kind of needed?
Well, I think on the playing side of things, you're obviously looking at performance, strikes. You're looking at a history of success, guys that you have seen do it and do it against quality competition. On the other side of that, I think you're looking at character. I think you're looking at toughness. You're looking at things that you utilize a different lens through that recruiting process, understanding, like, who can I coach? How is that thing going to really line itself up here, and how well are they going to fit into what this is? Because this is different for a lot of kids that step into it. They have this idea from the outside, and then they get in here and realize, like, man, everybody's good. There's a lot of good players here. So kids that kind of want to run to the roar, so to speak, and when you look at those personalities and guys that enjoy being in it as a group and being challenged, I think that we've checked off a lot of those boxes and feel good about the guys that are here.
Coach, Griffin Herring was huge for you guys last year out of the bullpen, needing him to extend. Is there a guy that can fill his role this year, or do you think maybe it might be a sum of the parts kind of thing with the amount of arms you have and the talent you have?
Hard to say. I mean, it could be both. It could be, DJ Primo's had a very productive fall and seems to be advancing his game. So if you're looking on the left-handed side, Connor Ware, a junior college transfer that's come in here, is certainly carved out a pretty good spot for himself thus far. But we've got guys like Kason Evans. I think there's more freshmen this year than there were last year on the pitching side of things, and these are guys with talent that are able to come in here and do some things. Maverick Rizzi's done a great job thus far. So, I don't mean to omit anybody, but when you look at that, Griffin was asked to carry a pretty unique workload in that if we needed to go to him Friday or Saturday to finish a game, so be it. In a perfect world, if you could hold him off until Sunday in some cases and then utilize him and deploy him for 4 or 5 innings there. I think he did it once maybe at Missouri where he finished up the game for us. He could just fit a lot of different roles. And so the experience for him, having been in Omaha the year before, having pitched in SEC games, there's no substitute for that. That experience is paramount. And that's the one thing that we're going to see with this group is how fast can they speed up that learning curve on the experience side of things, because while, again, some guys have played college baseball, they may not have played in this conference, and they certainly haven't played here.
Maybe time for one more for Nate.
A lot of Griffin's success last year was the fact that he could just tunnel his fastball and slider incredibly well. Hitters had no idea which pitch was coming. Who's sort of been doing a good job of, I guess, disguising pitches and arm slots and that sort of thing?
Well, I think when you look at the numbers from the fall and this far in the spring, there would be a lot of guys that would fall into that category. Certainly the guys that pitch more, as you watch the season unfold, will be the guys that are doing that. I can't put my finger on any one person in particular, but you're right. I mean, anytime that you can control a count, anytime that you can throw 2 or 3 different options out of that kind of the same window that are disguised to the hitter and being a little bit more challenging, that's where it's different. William Schmidt's advanced his game, in my opinion, by utilizing his changeup a little bit more, and our hitters are saying that plays very well off of his fastball and makes it pretty tough. So now it's just William getting to the other side of that conversation and seeing it from their point of view to go, all right, I understand that. So hopefully we'll see it with a lot of guys, but opportunity, and there's plenty of guys that have opened the door for that, and we'll see how they go.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you
it.
bet.
Thank you.